Hi everyone, welcome to That Medics Network. I'm Isabella, the UK Leadership Webinar host. Today I've got Jacob Oguntimehin with me. So hi Jacob, very happy
Hi.
to have you on. So a little bit on Jacob and what we're going to be talking about. Jacob is a final year medical student at the University of Kiel, and he has recently done a master's at LSE, and he's also set up something called TAMS, which is the Aspiring Medics Support. Very excited to talk about it all. So Jacob, could you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and TAMS?
Sure. Well, it's lovely to be here as well, and thank you to That Medic Network for having me on today. So, as you said, my name is Jacob. I'm a final year medical student at Kiel, and my interest lies in health policy. And as to how that fuels into, an interest in widening participation, essentially, from my experience and from my lived experience, I've come to understand that, that there are a number of medical students from socio-economically disadvantaged backgrounds who have, inadequate access to the support that's required to help them secure their career aspirations, essentially. And there's a number of statistics that back this up. There was like a major headline a few years ago from the BMA that said that 80% of schools, 80% of medical students come from 20% of the schools. And that was quite a groundbreaking headline. And, I was part of those people who were, as a result of a lack of not having access to doctors and a lack of not having access to other healthcare professionals, I faced a number of barriers. So yeah, a few years later, we set up TAMS, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. And the whole point of TAMS is to effectively support both aspiring and current medical students from a socio-economically disadvantaged background.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so a little bit more on initially what got you inspired to go into medicine. Would you be able to talk a little bit about the challenges you faced briefly for everyone?
Yeah, definitely. So what inspired me to get into medicine is the combination of, the ability to apply science, but apply science to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like, growing up, I grew up in a household where, I was exposed to, the need to care for people and, core science. So my mum's background was in biochemistry. She works as a science technician, whereas my dad is actually a hospital chaplain. So he works a lot with people. So medicine almost was that unique combination, whereby you're applying that hard science, but you're applying it to people in the context of people. So that's really where, that interest got stemmed from. And yeah, so in terms of the barriers, however, that I faced, as we all know, applying to medical school is no easy feat. You have to, do your personal statement, you have to acquire work experience. And obviously being the first doctor within my family, there was no one to really give me that support, to really actually understand how do I go about securing work experience? How do I go about, securing these opportunities? And thankfully I had people who would come and help me, but these were things and opportunities that I would really have to make for myself. And, I just realized that having access, to a community of doctors can really make the difference.
So those kind of barriers that you spoke about then, was that part of the inspiration for setting up TAMS?
Definitely. So the main inspiration for setting up TAMS was an understanding that in London, where we initially set up our operations, London being the capital, as we all know, and London is a very, very diverse city, both economically and ethnically as well. And what I found was that, there were a number of areas within London that had such high rates of depravity and such high rates of, not being able to access, doctors, and not being able to access healthcare professionals, and the rates of, healthcare professionals who are coming from these areas were very, very limited. So partly my lived experience, as well as, beginning to look at the statistics upon coming to medical school, and, you're looking around and you're not seeing people who are from your background or from similar backgrounds. You're meeting a lot of people from fee-paying schools, and you're just realizing that, like, clearly this is a systematic issue and clearly something needs to be done. So it really started from me wanting to just go back home and start something that can really create an opportunity and a community for these students to acquire, you know, the opportunities that perhaps they wouldn't have been able to get access to.
Yeah, I massively agree with that. I think when you come to medical school, you realise how privileged so many people are, and how, you know, a lot of people don't have those barriers. I can relate, being the first medic and first doctor in my family. You know, it was a massive thing, and when you don't know anyone who's a doctor, it's like, it's really hard to get things like work experience or UCAT. I know I was really lucky because I moved to a different school, and the school that I was originally at, you know, no one went for medicine, but then the school I moved to, lots of people went for medicine. And I felt this I felt so much support, and I knew if I'd stayed at my old school, or, you know, for people who might not be able to move schools or change, you know, like no one, you know, no one from the year above might have gone to medical school or have gotten in, and it is really daunting applying. So that really hits home, and I'm sure that will hit home for a lot of people watching this, who have experienced those barriers or are aware of them. And I think, you know, like you said, it's really important to be aware of these issues in medicine, and that it's very much a systematic problem. So I think a lot of people who are watching this will wonder a bit about like the practicalities of setting up TAMS. You know, how do you start an organisation like this? How did you kind of go about doing that?
Yeah, so I would say, in terms of starting an organisation, if anyone is interested in starting an organisation, I think it first has to start from, you need to be motivated to create change. And we're living in a society where we're so caught up in image. We're living in a society where we're so caught up in surface, whereby, you know, people just want to have social media pages. People just want to have X amount of followers. And I think if there's anyone that really wants to start something, I think it's about being the change that you want to see. And for TAMS, what this meant for us was none of this, you know, all of that we've been able to achieve, you know, being able to reach, you know, 3,000 students, you know, being able to support and send, you know, disadvantaged medical school students, disadvantaged applicants to medical school. None of this was ever on the agenda. Literally all it was, in terms of the inception, was wanting to create change. And that starts with you doing the things that you want to do. And that firstly started with me going back to my old secondary school and hosting a talk. And then from that, you know, inviting other medical school students who I knew who are from similar backgrounds and from similar areas, and then inviting them to do another talk as well. And then from there, we realized, oh, this could actually be a borough-wide event. And then we had like events specifically for different boroughs within you know, the city of London, who we knew had similar demographics in terms of, you know, economic depravity. And, you know, so we went from London to Leighton, we went all across London, did like 4 or 5, you know, different events, and continue to do them now online. And I think this just means, you know, it just stems from a place of wanting to create change. From there are the logistics, you know, that you begin to sort out, like becoming registered. So a registered community interest company, you know, the logistics of recruiting your team, the logistics of financing, all of those things. But I would really say, seek to make a change. And then when you seek to make a change, all of the other things will come, like when you start talking to people who realize that you're making a change. For example, we didn't go onto social media. We didn't create a social media page it took us 2 years, you know. And the reason why I said that, and place so much emphasis on not having a social media channel or a social media presence, was because I felt like that was going to be a distraction for us as a community. You know, I felt like we'll place more emphasis on trying to seem like we're making change rather than truly making change in itself. So I would say, really make the change that you want to make. Start with yourself. There's a great quote that says, you know, every movement starts with a few people, you know. So there's always just a few people who at the beginning, and then from there is a snowball effect. And now we just have an amazing, thriving community.
Yeah, it's so exciting to hear about. And, you know, the fact, it's a really interesting point, actually. I've never thought about was that, you know, when a lot of people set up stuff, they put such a big emphasis on social media and having it perfect, but actually, yeah, that does take away a lot of distraction, because it takes so much time. I know from running some social media pages myself, it really, you know, it takes a lot of energy from actually producing stuff. So yeah, that was a really interesting point. Yeah, so obviously you've said that now you know, you've got this amazing community with TAMS. Is this something that you see yourself doing kind of in the long term? Do you see this being something you want to continue to grow, or you'd like, you know, for other people to maybe kind of take charge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my passion is leadership, and I believe that true leadership can only be achieved as you expand your team and understand that your vision is so much bigger than you. And one thing I always say is that the leader's greatest joy is when things can run well without him. And I always say that to my team, and I always say that to the community, you know, that if this can run well without me, then I'm doing a good job. So in terms of my commitment to TAMS, yes, it's definitely long term. As to how that will look, it continues to change. You know, from at the beginning, I was the one that was running all the events, you know, and running the mentoring program. You know, it was literally just me, you know. But now we've got an amazing, thriving community. You know, we've grown by like 200%, like over the past few months. You know, we've got 20 students from across the country. You know, built in a wider context of even more medical students who provide freelance support for us. And, you know, this just means that the way that I operate now just has to be different. Now my role is just to provide strategic direction to the community. And then perhaps going forward, there will be someone else who could do that, you know, even better. And I'm always about, you know, give the job to the best person possible. And there are a lot of things that I can't do. We've got an amazing social media team. I'm rubbish at that, you know. So it's knowing what are your strengths and do the things that only you can do as a leader, and just leverage that, you know. So I just focus on what I can do, and what I can do is provide vision and provide strategy, and then I let the rest of my community do the rest, and they do an amazing job at that.
Yeah, that is interesting. How, so obviously, yeah, you know, now you're in a position where you provide vision, and you are and providing that kind of core leadership and letting other people take over. How do you kind of manage to do that with being a medical student? You know, because I think so many people watching this, they see, you know, medical students like yourself who are involved in so much and have massive responsibilities. And I think, well, you know, I feel so busy as a medical student anyway, because we have so many contact hours and stuff. You know, no matter what medical school you're at, I know people will be able to relate.
My name is Dr. Siddhar Mao. I am a former HLA Scholar, FY2 doctor in West Yorkshire. The HLA is a great experience. It's a unique experience, and it's a personal and engaging mentorship process which gives you a pragmatic and realistic approach to true leadership, which we can take on to all aspects of our career.
Yeah, so how do you manage your time between TAMS and medical school?
Yeah, that's another great question, Isabella. And I think the thing about all of this, the key to it is time management. And I think the key to all of this is knowing that, you know, there is a lot of time. You know, time is finite, but there is a lot of it to go around. And knowing that, you know, medical school and medical school studies, that can't be everything that I'm going to do. And, you know, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people watching this who are more than a medical student, you know, that they have interests in arts, they have interests in financing, they have interest in different things. And I think, you know, one thing that's really, really important, there's another quote that's really, really cool that, you know, that I heard that says, schedule your priorities, don't prioritize your schedule. And what does that mean? It essentially means that the things that are important to you, put them in a week, you know, and then the rest, and then make everything else happen around it. If Netflix is really, really important to you, then you can use 5 hours on Netflix. But if you know, building a company and building a vision is really, really important to you, then you'll put that in and you'll prioritize that. And then sadly, there will not be an episode of The Crown for you to watch that week. Or, you know, you will make it work. So that's literally what I always say, you know, just at the beginning of the week, I just prioritize, you know, scheduling my priorities, you know, and making sure that all of the things that are important to me go into my week. And then it just so happens that, you know, you just have less time for the things that are less important to you.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually, that quote of, I really like that quote of being able to, you know, don't prioritize your schedule, because I definitely think sometimes I do that, and I'm sure a lot of people who, you know, first or second year especially, who haven't been at medical school for as long, they do really prioritize, and you put your learning, you know, on a bit of a pedestal, and that's what I realized in second year, that actually I need to prioritize other things. So which is why I've gotten involved at Medics Network, and I'm really involved in like widening participation at Sheffield Medical School. So I do loads of social media stuff for SWAMs, and yeah, and I'm a lot happier like that. And I think a lot of people really could do with that advice of, you know, do those things that you enjoy, like if you enjoy watching Netflix, or if you enjoy watching TikToks, or you know, whatever, just, you know, make sure you have time for it. So yeah, I really hope, you know, for anyone watching this, like, take Jacob's advice on that, because that definitely is really useful, and it's definitely something that I've just kind of started to realize kind of halfway through second year. You realize that in first year, you know, you're kind of way ahead of the game. And also, obviously, I know some people will prioritize becoming, you know, best in a year or whatever, but I'm sure, I guess for you, it's more like, well, I think I view it as, I could spend, you know, an extra 10 hours a week revising, or I could put that time into doing other stuff, maybe maybe not quite get that top mark, but do all that other stuff, so I'm really well rounded.
Definitely. Like, even off the back of that, I think it's, what's so interesting is that, you know, when you apply to medical school, you have all of these amazing extracurricular activities. You know, there's not one person that's going to get into med school without having, you know, done something interesting, you know, or done something that's not medicine, you know. And what happens in first year and in the early years is almost that you become so consumed with medicine that you almost find your identity in that, you know, that, oh yeah, I'm a medical student, you know. So I think, it's so interesting. So my advice will always be to the students in our community, I always give them the advice that write down like your roles, you know, what are the roles that you have? You know, are you a medical student? Are you a leader? You know, are you a friend? You know, are you a daughter? Are you a son? You know, are you a brother? Are you a sister? Write all of the roles that you have and what are your goals in those areas, you know, and then it can really just show you how complex you are as a human being, and that you are really more than a medical student. And I think that's always a great place to start. What are your roles? What are the current roles that you have? And what are your goals there? You know, and then you might find that you're giving a bit too much time to one area of your life. So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
No, it is interesting, and it's definitely something that I think I'm realizing as I'm getting older. And I think, like you said, so many people that is their identity, and I think it is something at university, like medics kind of all congregate together, and it's all like, oh, we're all medics, we're all, you know, we're kind of different, but and it's and so many, I know so many people who did amazing things before medical school, and then, you know, said, oh, I don't have time, I don't have the time or energy to do it. But I think, if you prioritize, you really can do that. So a little bit of a different point, but that I did kind of want to bring up, is that obviously you did a master's, which I'm sure it would be really interesting for people to hear about, especially because lots of people at medical school think about intercalating, including myself. And you were also a HLA Scholar, which is really exciting because the HLA are sponsoring that Medics Network. So it was really exciting to see that. So I was just wondering, going through those two things, have they impacted kind of, I don't know, have they impacted you as a medical student much? Have they impacted the way you've kind of focused on TAMS? Did they give you support doing that? Did you, did it give it a kind of new direction and focus?
Yeah. That's a great question. So yeah, I'll talk about the health policy masters first, then I'll talk about HLA.
Yeah.
So like you said, I did a master's last year in health policy planning and financing at the London School of Economics, as well as the London School of Tropical Medicine as well. And it was a very, very interesting degree. It was an amazing degree which attracted healthcare leaders from around the world. We had people from America, we had people from Canada, we had people from low-income countries, high-income countries. And the whole point of the degree was to explore the nuances and the practicalities of delivering healthcare policy and developing and implementing healthcare policy. Very, very interesting. And yeah, so that can take up the whole of this talk, but I won't go into that. But essentially, as to how this shaped me, what I live and breathe is leadership. And what I love is leadership. I love empowering people. I love harnessing human energy to create change. That is literally what I love doing. So the health policy degree gave me the language to understand the current healthcare system that we find ourselves in. And how that shaped my focus for TAMS is that really what widening participation is trying to do is it is trying to improve, the diversity of the workforce, because a more diverse workforce is able to support a more diverse population. So widening participation is like one cog in this complex system of healthcare system. So really it allowed me to take a step back and see TAMS in context of widening participation and TAMS in context of, the healthcare system at large, and that was really, amazing. In terms of HLA, I did that alongside my master's, and HLA has been great, and the Healthcare Leadership Academy was a great platform, once again, for me to, network with other like-minded medical students and healthcare professionals as well, who are interested in, in leadership and leadership in the context of healthcare. So that was a great opportunity to develop myself personally. It was also a great opportunity to invest more time into TAMS, because part of that was running a project, and my project was TAMS, and TAMS was very much in its infancy at that stage, and I was able to really devote a lot more time into TAMS. And then fortunately enough, afterwards, the HLA Ideas, is something that was formed, which was a program that takes on like organizations, and they recently taken on TAMS, and we've been working closely with the HLA again. So it's been great. HLA is great, and it's been great for me personally, and it's also given language and skills for the community as well.
Yeah, so I didn't know this. Would you be able to say a bit more about what the HLA take on? Do they take on kind of projects and organizations like yours? And I don't know, what do they do with that? Is it support? Is it funding?
Yeah, so there's a program called the HLA Ideas program. So that runs separate from the HLA Scholar program. So the HLA Ideas program, anyone can apply. Cheeky plug, you can actually apply now. They're actually recruiting for the next cohort. And if you're running an organization, the whole point is that it stems from the understanding that there are lots of incubator programs for for-profit companies, whereas in the non-for-profit sector, particularly in the health sector, what you find is that you have a lot of medical students who have lots of great ideas, but sadly, they don't build things that are sustainable, both in terms of financial viability and other resources that are required for an organization. So what the HLA Ideas does in terms of the program, it pulls different organizations together, and then we have different talks like every 6 weeks. And we talk about things like, your projects, we talk about things like financial viability, we talk about things like organizational culture. And yeah, we just talk about, us as individuals, and then we communicate with one another, bounce back and forth with one another, form partnerships with one another. So it really creates a platform for community of other like-minded medical students. So definitely, I highly recommend it if someone was looking for something to apply for, to really trying to sharpen their skills if they've got an existing organization already.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I hadn't heard of that. So yeah, if anyone is interested, please have a look at that. So yeah, so one other thing that I really wanted to ask you about, and you did kind of mention this very briefly. Obviously, we're living in very trying times at the minute with COVID. And I'm really, really interested to know, what impact has COVID had on TAMS? Obviously you run events for students, like, days and stuff and talks. So yeah, how have you adapted to that?
Yeah, I would say TAMS, during the global pandemic, which we still find ourselves in, TAMS has truly gone from strength to strength. And prior to the pandemic, we didn't have a social media platform or a social media presence. And as a result of, the government restrictions that were put into place, we were no longer able to go to the schools in the way that we were doing before. So 2020 March, we found ourselves now in a position where, okay, what do we do now? So it was at that point that we felt, okay, maybe this is a good time for us to start our social media page and to start a virtual talk. So we actually ran a campaign called #WeAreTAMS. We released a promo video. We had like loads of support, like hundreds and hundreds of people, getting behind what we're trying to do. And yeah, it just raised awareness significantly. And within months, we were able to reach like 3,000 students with our resources. So yeah, how it's impacted us is that it has shifted us as an organization to change. And every effective organization is one that's adaptable to change, So, the circumstances changed, so we had to change. But the mission remains the same. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, there's so much more I'd like to ask, but yeah, so that, hopefully for anyone watching, you've seen a bit about what Jacob's done and about TAMS. What if you were a medical student, a few years back, Jacob, like me, first or second year, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to someone who was interested in leadership, but but kind of wasn't sure where to start? What would you say to your younger self a few years ago?
That's a good question.
Not an easy question.
That's not an easy question. Okay, 3 pieces of advice that I'll give to them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 3. Just something that you.
Yeah, sure. Like. Yeah, we can challenge ourselves. Okay, so the first thing that I'll say is understand yourself now. Okay, yeah, we've got 3. Okay, so understand yourself now. Yeah. So what do I mean by that? Understand what are your current values. What is important to you right now? What is it that makes you laugh? What is it that makes you cry? What is it that makes you smile? Take time out to really understand that. Second thing, understand your past. So what do I mean by that? Understand how is it that you've been scripted as a human being? And why is this important for leadership? Because you need to understand the values that have been installed into you such that you can know what are the good things that you've taken on and what are the bad things that you've taken on board. And then when you've done that, I would say, okay, now begin to define where you're going. So where you've come from, where you are, and where you're going. And what I mean by that now is, now that you've understood, what's really important to you, and how that's been influenced, by the past, your social conditioning, now you can be in a better position to actually understand how is it that I can move forward as a leader? Because the first position is knowing that you are a leader, every single human being has leadership potential. It's just a matter of tapping into that. So I would tell my younger self, now that you've gone through this process of understanding your past, your present, and now beginning to understand your future, now you can begin to seek for opportunities, because you're not going to take anything that comes your way, but you're really going to be looking for things intentionally. You're really going to be looking for things through the lens of the understanding of the person that you are and the person that you want to be. So sounds cliche, but I would say probably do those 3 things first, and then we can talk about the practicalities afterwards.
Yeah, no, that was great. No, and that is good advice. And for anyone watching, who is like me, starting medical school and might might be feeling a little bit unsure or uncertain, you know, hopefully you can take this advice on and, you know, use it and, you know, try and really just like discover yourself, what you want and kind of what you want and what you might want to change. Because I think all of us see it's so the beauty of medicine is that everyone sees different things and sees things in a different light and has different ideas. So, you know, if you've got an idea, have the confidence to go for it. So amazing. So thank you so much, Jacob, for coming on and it's been really lovely talking to you, and I'm sure the audience will find this really interesting.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you so much. Wish everyone the best.
Yeah. So I'm Isabella, this is Jacob, and this is That Medics Network. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe, leave a comment on who you might like to see next. Also, we have £50 Medics.Academy vouchers to give out for educational resources. So all you need to do is leave a comment and we will pick our favourite comment and you can win a voucher for free. So yeah, so go ahead, comment, like, subscribe, and all of Jacob's details will be linked below. So if you want to get into contact with him about TAMS or just talk to him more, it'll all be down below.
Can I start?
Okay, ready? Yeah. 3, 2.
So what do we say for the HLA? Why we took part?
Don't move chin.
So I'm just going to stop.
Just when you end it.
Don't look away.
Yeah,
that is not going anywhere.
Just another day at the office.
Hi, I'm no.
Most important thing is what I've learned from the HLA and adapting it and moving forward and making sure, you know, I make use of it. The reason why I don't know what to say. If I make a mistake, can I just like take a pause and then start again?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Don't really know what to say. Don't record this.
I've really enjoyed it. I've learned so much, and I've really benefited from. Oh God, what have I benefited from? Oh.
Okay.
Is that it's been a fantastic. Oh no, I've lost it.
Can you give me a countdown?
I don't know how much to gesticulate. How much? He's quite a mellow person. I don't know.
I'm ready.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll like chop and add some things.
We're looking forward to seeing you. Bye bye.